Welcome to Night Shadows Sunday. I'm Stewart, and we're going to depart a little bit from what we normally do because of what's going on over in the Middle East. And how do I say? The way Iran and Trump and the rest of them are operating is clearly a script, but a script that they probably don't even realize they're fulfilling. I wanted to get into something that's going on that is probably biblical, and I say probably, it's probably a 90% chance that what we're actually watching is Habakkuk being fulfilled before our very eyes. You'll find it in the scriptures in the Old Testament, and it's being fulfilled right now. And I wanted to go through it a little bit because when you're watching biblical prophecy being fulfilled, you're watching that which is written carried out, which means, well, if that was written, the rest of it should be written as well and adhered to because it's true. A lot of people don't really believe that the Bible is true or ultimate truth. It's kind of a nebulous thing. They hang out there. Well, maybe part of it is and maybe part of it isn't. And because of our biases that we've talked about, Jesus said, get rid of all your biases. Lie not against the truth. In other words, don't be calling the biblical written record as a lie. Don't lie against it. Don't pick and choose. Remember when Jesus said, approach me as a little child, without your biases, without your prejudices, without having to filter it through your Baptist theology, your Catholic theology, your Lutheran theology, or whatever theology you hold dear to yourself. Get rid of it. Pretend it doesn't even exist. Open up your heart to the real truth of what's happening around the world. Now, biblical prophecy is there for a very good reason. This is to show you, number one, that God is true and that his record is true, and the rest of what he has to say about salvation is also true. And we have abandoned the Word of God today. We just pick and choose that which we want to believe, and if it goes against what we want to believe, we just discard it. You cannot do that. If you're going to approach the biblical record as a child, then you have to face it like, well, that's what Daddy said. That's what the Father said, so it must be true. Well, it is, of course, not must be, it is, which you will find out if you do as you're told. We've gone over that many, many times on the salvation issue. You don't need to go over that one again right now. Anyway, I wanted to start with Habakkuk. Chapter 1, this is from the King James Version. The burden which Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, however you want to pronounce it, the prophet did see. In other words, he was given a vision. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear, even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save? Why dost thou show me iniquity or evil? Cause me to behold grievance, for spoiling and violence are before me. And there are that raise up strife and contention. It's kind of an interesting thing. There are those who rise up strife and contention. Sometimes we call it regime change. Other times we simply call it to a nation, you're not doing what we want. And because Babylon, America, is the hammer of the whole earth, we will force you to do what we want by hook or by crook. There are many, many ways we can do it. We can starve you economically. We can drop bombs upon you. We can do any number of things. We can infiltrate your governmental forces, and we can cause that to change. Communists are really good at that. That's what they've done to the United States. They've infiltrated it. And so probably more than half of the American people are communists at this point, don't really even know it, but that's what they really are. Even though communism has never worked, every time it's been tried, it ends up with violence and iniquity and evil. But anyway, therefore, verse 4, the law is slacked. Judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceeds. Well, it's lawlessness. Total lawlessness. We're seeing it every day in Washington. People do the most dastardly deeds. They get away from it. They get away with it. Hillary Clinton's a good example. Bill Clinton, another one. There's all of them. Fauci of the mRNA vaccine has killed millions, many millions more. Has he gone to prison? No. He's rewarded for it. The evil people are rewarded. If you try to stop it, you end up in prison, or you're silenced, or you're simply done away with. Law is slacked. Judgment never goes forth. What are you watching? It's in the courts. It's all over the nation. People do horrible things to other people. Nothing ever happens to them, or so they think. No accountability for what they have done. Oh, I got away with that one. Anyway, so what we're dealing with here in these first verses is a lawless nation, basically, or nations. Basically, all of them are lawless at this point. It's a global thing. But America, Babylon, whether people like the concept, whether America's Babylon or not, doesn't really matter. Babylon is the hammer of the whole earth. Babylon is the leading nation. Babylon has the greatest military, etc., 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 up until the end, when everything begins to just fall apart. Then, in verse 5, behold you among the heathen, regard, wonder marvelously. I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it be told to you. What in the world is this work that God says, I will work a work? So we think whatever's coming is not necessarily done by the president or Congress or anybody else. It's kind of like the Lord is behind this whole thing. I will work a work. For lo, I will raise up the Chaldeans. That's us, the modern day Chaldeans, modern day Babylonians, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. In other words, we are going to watch something where we begin to absorb nations, their people, what they have in resources and heap it unto ourselves. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. What does that mean? Their own conscience. From their conscience of what is right and what is wrong. Now, the problem with this is, as we have discovered in the narcissistic world that we live in today, conscience is seared. So they proceed of what they perceive to be what they want, dressed up as rightful, not evil, but beneficial. In other words, their conscience is seared to the point that they do evil thinking it is good, if you get my drift here. Good for them. You can take that down to the individual level. What's good for me may not be good for the gander. But remember that old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander? Well, not necessarily true, in the sense that these kind of people only want what is good for themselves or what they feel they need to have, and they don't care the ramifications of what it does to others. Now, expand that concept to a nation. And this is what we're doing. We are the Chaldeans. We are terrible and dreadful. Look at our military. And judgment and their dignity proceeds out of themselves. In other words, remember when Trump, for example, said, well, I operate from whatever my conscience tells me. Well, he doesn't really have a conscience. His conscience is basically seared, and in its place is whatever I want to do, whatever I perceive to be rightful and good, even though it may be evil and horrible, I will do it anyway, because I do not perceive it as being evil or bad. Their horses are swifter than the leopards. They are more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hateth to eat. Ever watch a squadron of fighter planes and bombers? They spread themselves. They come from far. They're airplanes. They fly as the eagle. This is an aerial, at first anyway, it's an aerial invasion. They touch not the ground. We find that in Daniel chapter 8. They touch not the ground. Same thing. And they come from far, from the west, all the way to the east. And it's aerial in nature. So what do we have? B-52s, B-2s, refuelers, fighter jets, all these. It's an aerial, even missiles. All of the, even drones can be included in all of this because they fly in the air. And what do? They come for violence, which we will now see. And they shall all come for violence. In other words, munitions. They're going to blow up whatever they find that they think they want to blow up. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind. Not interesting. It's an invasion of the east. And they shall gather their captivity as the sand. They shall scoff at kings, and princes shall be a scorn unto them. They shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap dust and take it. Now we're getting into this dust. What is Trump talking about? He wants to accumulate, store up, remove, take radioactive material, which he is referring to as dust. Now, you might ask the question, why in the world? They're trying to say on major media that he is the one who coined the phrase radioactive dust. Well, did he? Is this accidental? Or is the Lord trying to tell us something? They, the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, scoff at the kings, and the princes shall be a scorn unto them. They shall deride every stronghold. In other words, they mock, they laugh at the Arab and Persian princes and kings. What are we doing, basically? We're playing with them like a cat plays with a mouse. Isn't that amazing? Who would have ever thought that Babylon, America, would rise up to the point where it has developed these secret weapons, including TR-3Bs, anti-gravity devices. They hold the heavens basically in their own hands, along with the global rich people who are behind all this. So this is kind of interesting. Then it says his mind shall change, and he will pass over and offend, imputing that his power unto his God. Now you might want to remember something about Donald Trump. He's not a Christian, folks. He is, in fact, a Royal Arch Freemason. He honors the God of forces. I'm not saying he's the Antichrist, but more and more and more evidence. We'll get into this business of Antichrist, but to be brief, anti can mean in place of, or it means totally against Jesus Christ. Well, Jesus Christ was meek, mild, friendly, etc., except for, when he kind of went up against the Pharisees and Sadducees. But even then, even though he dressed them out, he never raised a finger against them. He never raised his hand against them. The only violence we find in the scripture was when he got into the temple of God and threw out the money changers. He was so offended by what they had done. And basically, what have we done? We have changed Christianity into a financial powerhouse where we sell movies. We're on TV, we're on the radio, and what are we all doing? Begging for money. Oh, we got to have money. You know how deep your pocket is, and you know that the Lord will reward those who reward our ministry, our work, and of course they live in mansions, they have their own jet airplanes, etc., etc., etc. Peter talks all about these phonies. And millions upon millions upon millions of people follow them into their eternal ruin, just as they themselves, the leaders, are going into eternal ruin. We've gone over that before. We're not doing anything different. He imputes his power unto his God. What is his God? The God of power, the God of force. God of fortresses, military power. That's what enables us Hegseth and all the things you see on TV. Well, we'll just eliminate Iran if they don't do what we tell them. We'll just obliterate them. They won't even be a nation anymore. We'll just kill them all. Well, we have the power to do it. Now, this is interesting. Thou hast ordained them. This is verse 12. Art thou not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, thou hast ordained them for judgment. Thou hast established them for correction. What does that mean? Well, look at what the Ayatollahs have done to the people of Iran. I mean, they execute them left and right. They torture. They rape, gang rape the women who are arrested, and then they torture them through rape, and then they kill them publicly by beheading. Thou hast ordained them for judgment. In other words, the Persians are going to be judged. Remember how God uses a nation for judging and then turns around and judges them. Done that many, many, many times. It's happening right in front of our face. Anyway, thou art purer eyes than to behold evil, and canst not look on iniquity. Therefore lookest thou upon them that deal treacherously. Oh, well, the Iranians deal treacherously, don't they? Oh yeah, we're going to agree with this. Yep, we'll sign this agreement right here, and the next day they violate it. They had no intention of doing anything they say, nor does Trump. Both of them are dealing treacherously. And holdeth thy tongue when the wicked devoureth the man that is more righteous than he, and makest men, globally men, as fishers of the sea, as creeping things. That's a kind of an interesting statement, isn't it? In other words, mankind basically are expendables. They're no different than the fish of the sea. They're no different than creeping things. They're just expendables. We can feed our men into the fires of warfare. Look at what's going on in Ukraine. Millions fed into the meat grinder. Does anybody cry out? Very few. Give Trump a little bit of credit because he has. He said, oh, we got to stop this. I mean, look at all the killings that's going on. But this goes beyond that. This is the rise of the Antichrist movement, where anybody that disagrees with what is the common thought process of the day is simply exterminated. We're coming up on the Christian persecution because of the hatred that Jesus said was going to arise as we come to the end. It's an unreasonable, illogical, has no rational basis for killing the Christians exactly as they did Jesus Christ himself. They didn't have any, they had no reason to kill him. He wasn't doing anything. But they were afraid of him, just as they are afraid of Christians today. It's spiritual in its nature. There's an automatic hatred, irrational, illogical, unreasonable hatred for true Christianity. Spiritual. Because God, not God, but the God of this world, Satan hates Jesus Christ and hates his followers. Kill them all. That's his attitude. In fact, he would if he could get away with it. Anyway, they take all of them. This is humanity now with the angle. This is Antichrist. They catch them in their net, gather them in their drag. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice unto their net and burn incense unto their drag, because by them their portion is fat, their meat plenteous. Shall they therefore empty their net and not spare continually to slay the nations? Kind of an interesting comment as we go forth. Let's see, we've heard about Greenland, we heard about Venezuela, we heard about Cuba. Now it's Iran, and who knows who's next on the list. Hammer of the whole earth demands obedience, or we will simply force you into this. Now you would say, what about Russia? What about China? Well, so far, they haven't really done anything but make threats. Why is that? I believe it's because there's a greater script being used here. They will not do anything until the time when it is time for the destruction of Babylon the Great. We are the first nation to go in this whole sequence of nations. Kind of interesting how the UN and China and Russia and all of these interplay with each other. I want to just park here on, they shall come all for violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind. They shall gather the captivity as the sand. Come for violence. What does the word violence mean? H2555, if you want to look it up. Violence, by implication, wrong, unjust gain, cruel, false injustice, unrighteous, wrong. In other words, evil. In other words, what Trump and what we're doing to Iran, what we did to in Venezuela, what we're soon going to be doing in Cuba, what we're going to be doing elsewhere is, according to the Lord, not only totally lawless, it's utterly wrong, it's utterly evil, it is considered unjust gain. We want to meditate on that a little bit if we think that America is such a righteous nation, a Christian nation. It is so far removed from a Christian nation. Obama, when he said America is no longer a Christian nation, that was one of the times he was actually telling the truth. We are no longer a Christian nation. We no longer abide by the morals or the ethics of Christianity, and that goes all the way down to the individual level. We go out, we do what we want, and we don't care whether it's evil, we don't care what it is. I want it. I need it, and so I'm going to go get it. The word gather, kind of an interesting word too. To gather for any purpose, hence to receive or take away, that is, to remove, destroy, leave. Now we're going to gather the They come from violence. They shut up to the east wind, gather that captivity as the sand. So that's what the word gather means. Basically, destroy, gather in, together, take away from the viewpoint of, we'll say, the Persians. I mean, they've been basically pulverized. Now people are saying, well, they haven't given up their main weapons yet, and we're going to learn from them a few things. I'm not so sure. If you go into Daniel 8 or Habakkuk, we really take over Persia. We do them great harm. Sup up. That's kind of an interesting phraseology. It comes from H4041 Strong's. Accumulation. That is by impulse or direction, to sup up. Kind of interesting that the word impulse is there, because that's exactly what Trump said. He does it by impulse. Or does he? Is this a strategy? Or is he kind of like a narcissistic? This is one of the things that a narcissistic person has problems controlling themselves, because if they're in a situation where they figure, well, I won't get caught here, my impulse will be to go for this, whatever it is, no matter what it is. And they will, by that impulse, do something they know perfectly well they shouldn't be doing, but the impulse is so strong, they do it anyway. It's kind of interesting that this word is impulse is included, also means accumulation. Now, the root of the word means to gather, an assemblage. Isn't that interesting? The word sand, round or whirling particles, translated simply as sand. Now, if you go into the Middle East, a lot of sand over there, isn't it? Kind of another implication of where we're actually talking about. Now, it says they heap dust and take it. The word heap, to aggregate, to gather together, to heap it up, to lay it up. What has Trump said? We want Iran to give us, or we are going to take their radioactive dust, nuclear dust. So the word dust has also a meaning in the root, powdered or gray, hence clay, earth, ashes, mortar, powder, or rubbish. Kind of interesting. Take it. What does that word mean? Capture, occupy, choose. What are we watching, folks? What are we really watching? Why is Trump, again, I asked the question, why is Trump using the word dust? And now all major media is also using that word. Are we being told to look up in biblical prophecy what this dust is? Trump is referring to it as radioactive, nuclear. What are we over there for? To stop Iran from producing nuclear weapons. Fascinating. How we are most likely, 90% chance, watching this being fulfilled right before our very eyes, and it's connected directly to the rise of Antichrist. Now, I know Nathan Leal and a number of others think that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. He has to be king of Babylon. That is one of the parameters for Lucifer. They tie together Lucifer and Antichrist. I'm not sure you can do that, but we're going to find out quick enough whether you can or not, whether they're the same individual or not, because Lucifer is, by the experts anyway, tied directly to Antichrist. So we'll assume, maybe incorrectly or maybe correctly, that they're correct and that this is what this is all about. So we're watching Trump, who is the very opposite of Jesus Christ. Now, there are a few other parameters that I don't have time to get into, but one of them is he takes the kingdom by flatteries. You notice how Trump flatters everybody? All you got to do is watch him on TV. When he's got a group of people, he flatters them. He makes all kinds of, how do we say, comments that validate these people. We've gone into this validation before. People will do all kinds of things to get validation from others. It's built in. It's part of our fallen human nature to want others to appreciate us, to give us compliments. If you're a woman, oh, you are so pretty, you are beautiful, you're brilliant, this and that just automatically makes them feel good. Particularly in the business world, where you're busy climbing that ladder. That's how a lot of people who have absolutely no ability at all, they're what they call brown-nosing, to be blunt about it. They're always validating their boss. They're always complimenting their boss, even though they may secretly think their boss is a complete idiot. But he was the one who will give them a promotion, and so on and on and on it goes. Okay. Chapter 2. Habakkuk. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower. I will watch to see what he will say unto me, meaning God, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Now, isn't that an interesting comment in view of the straight gate and narrow way? You know, remember Jesus said we are to watch continually. We'll get it back into this sometime later on, but what is he going to say to me when I meet him? And what am I going to answer when I have been reproved? That's an interesting concept, don't you think? That has to do with a lot of things, and one of them is, of course, salvation. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that reads it. My interpretation, he's talking about what is to take place when he raises up the Chaldeans. For the vision is not yet for an appointed time, but at the end. Oh, are we being told we are at the end? It shall speak. In other words, this Chaldeans, these mighty ones that go forth to the Middle East and rise up strife and contention globally through the intelligence agencies like the NSA, the CIA, the Mossad, all of these intel groups, globally run by the great elite and Satan on top. Write the vision. Make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that readeth it. We're in the preliminary stage of this vision. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, so we know it's already started, but at the end it shall speak, it shall not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it. Well, it has tarried. Everybody's been looking for the end times to start. We get all these things to come together and we say, oh, here it is. That's been going on now for I don't know how long. And yet we sail by, we keep sailing by. All of these things come together. We anticipate the rapture of the church. We go through it, nothing happens, and on and on and on. That word soon becomes a very dirty word to the Christian because the word soon implies to us, well, it's got to be close, should be close. But what is soon to the Lord? Well, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 10 years, it could be 100 years. So the word soon, from our perspective, doesn't mean what we think it would mean, and we have the proof of that because we have soon, but then we have delay. We have soon, and then we have delay. We have soon, and then we have more delay. And we have soon, and we have even more and more and more delay. And I think there's a reason for this, which we'll get into. Patience. He wants patience, and you're going to have patience if you're going to truly walk the narrow way. It requires patience. Everything requires patience. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Oh, it's an appointed time. Isn't that interesting? So, did the Lord use Trump to start this appointed time? It has tarried, and now it's speaking. He says it will surely come. So it's going to happen. And what have we got? What's happening? That Babylon the Great is in the Middle East. What were we doing in Venezuela? Venezuela is a sovereign nation. Whether we like what we do or what they do or don't do is immaterial. Iran is a sovereign nation. None of our business what they do, unless you're lawless, unless you're wrong, unless what you're doing is evil. Well, you can't say that. Look at what Iran has done. Well, look at what we have done. Who produced mRNA? I want you to consider that. How many people globally has it killed? It's a silent killer. Nevertheless, we are Babylon, the later-day Chaldean, serial killers, and God holds us all accountable, not just our leaders. All of us are accountable. We are going to answer before the Lord for what we have done. Remember the book of life? You're going to stand before the Lord. If you don't get saved, you're going to stand before the Lord, and you're going to have a review of everything you did. You can't hide anything. Well, I got away with that one, and I got away with that one, and I got away. None seeth me. No one sees me. In other words, I'm so clever, I'm so smart, that I can arrange all these little indiscretions, and no one will ever find out. I got news for you. There's one that's watching you. He knows it all, and it's all written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and your judgment is right there. Now, if you're a saved person, truly born-again Christian, guess what? You go through what they call the Bema Seat judgment, where all your deeds are going to be the same. They're on everything you did that you shouldn't have done, or all the things you did that were good and wholesome, rightful. That's the judgment. Once to die, then the judgment. You either go through life and die and then face the judgment from which there is no escape, or you die now through the straight gate and narrow way, the shadow of the valley of death, and you then face Jesus Christ. You figure out and know exactly what the condemnation is, and you either accept it, his judgment, from reasoning together with you, or you reject it. Either way, judgment cometh. Anyway, behold, his soul, this is obviously Antichrist, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine. Now, it is said that Trump does not drink at all. So we don't know whether he does or doesn't, or whether he starts to drink. He is a proud man. That obviously is Trump. Neither keepeth at home. In other words, he's a whoremonger. He's out, he's a womanizer. He's out seducing all kinds of women. He enlarges his desire as hell. In other words, he just can't get enough. He's got to keep going out there and getting more and more and more in all directions: money, power, womanizing, all of these things that people do. They kind of all wrapped up in this guy. It cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Well, that's kind of what Antichrist does, isn't it? Wow. So we know he's king of Babylon. That's what the scriptures say. That's one of the parameters that we have to keep in mind all the time when we're dealing with Antichrist, Lucifer, if they're the same person. No, they may not be the same person. This is what I'm not quite sure about. But he is king of Babylon. That's what it says. Could be Obama. Could be Clinton. Maybe it's Hillary Clinton. We don't know yet. However, we do have a guy in the White House that is fulfilling more and more and more of these prophecies. He's haughty, he's arrogant, he takes the kingdom by flatteries. He is not respected as a king. What was the No King movement all about? All across America, there were a No King movement. He is not one of the parameters. He is not respected as a king. Trump is not respected as a king, but he is a proud man. He is haughty. He is arrogant. He blasphemes the Lord. Did you see this last thing he did with this AI where he portrayed himself? He can say otherwise. He portrayed himself as Jesus Christ, and he got caught, and so he's backpedaling. And when Nathan Leo posted that, I could not believe the number of people who were trying to defend Trump. It is more and more and more obvious who he thinks he really is. Remember, he has said previously, I am the anointed one. I am the only one that can solve the problems of the world. He has said that openly. And now he portrays himself as Jesus Christ healing. Then he comes out, well, you got to look into the background and see those figures that are in the background. He knew exactly what he was doing. Don't kid yourself. This guy's telling you what he thinks about himself. And people, they love Trump. So, oh, he's done so much good. Well, of course he has. You do good to cover your evil. It's no different than a narcissist goes out and does something very evil, betrays, comes home with a smile, and love bombs, and all of this. Well, what do you think Trump's doing? He's love bombing the mega people. He's love bombing the people by doing a few good deeds here and there. But the main things that he has not done, what about those? How about NDAA? How about FEMA camps? How about all this other stuff like mRNA? How about, his fast tracking of the mRNA, working with the military? This was a military operation from start to finish. It was Department of Defense. It was DARPA. They were behind all this, and so wasn't he. This guy is an actor. Folks, wake up. Now, I like to listen to Donald Trump, but I know what I'm looking at now. I did a lot of research on him. He is a Royal Arch Freemason. Now, you may remember in that thing where he was depicting himself as the great healer, imitating Jesus Christ, of course. Did you notice his outfit? The red? Well, look at what a Royal Arch Freemason wears. Folks, you got to do your homework to figure out what's going on. You're being played. Everybody that defends Donald Trump is being played. They don't get it. They don't understand what he's doing. I'm not saying don't pray for him. We're ordered to pray for our leaders. But this guy is something else. Oh, he's going to be executed. Well, maybe he is. Maybe he won't be. Or maybe he'll have a head wound. You know, he tried that little stunt. That wasn't real. Anybody that believes that was real needs to re-examine the blood color. The fact that Donald Trump didn't really have any kind of a ear that was wounded any great degree. There's no, look at his ears now. There's not one thing about any kind of a wound or hurt on the ear that would leave a scar. If a bullet actually grazed his ear, it would leave a scar. No scar. Color of the blood, wrong color, etc., etc., etc. People have picked that one apart for a long, long time. I know people love Trump and they just cannot help but support him no matter what he does, no matter what he says. They support him. Well, you know, he's trying his best. It's all part of the pivot man, rules for radicals. He is the man who pivots us into the new world order. Folks, listen to what prophecy says. He's a pivot man. The book Rules for Radicals was written by a rank communist into how to eventually turn the nation into a communist nation. Look at the popularity polls about Trump. He's definitely not very popular these days. Why is that? Well, because he's got us involved in a war, and people say, well, he's trying to get out of it. I'm not so sure he's trying to get out of it. I think he's following a script. It's not written by him. It's written by those who are way above him. Also by the chief of all chiefs, the Lord of all lords, God himself. I have stretched out my hand upon all the nations. And I have proposed, and what I have proposed, I'm going to do, and who is going to stop me? So ultimately, all of this goes back to a chain of command. Anyway, shall not all these take up a parable, this is verse 6, chapter 2 of Habakkuk, against him, Antichrist, leader of Babylon, president of Babylon at the time of this, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Wow. What about that statue of Daniel and the clay and the iron? Ladeth himself with thick clay. You might want to consider that one as well. Shall they not, these nations you have spoiled, shall they not rise up suddenly, whoa, out of the blue, quickly, sudden destruction, when they say peace and security, peace and safety, peace and prosperity, when they say these things, sudden destruction cometh upon them, they shall not escape. Shall they not rise up suddenly, all these nations you spoil? Shall they bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and shall be for booties unto them? Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. Remnant. In other words, a lot of people in these nations got killed. When this thing finally breaks loose, when the truth of what this guy is going to do suddenly emerges, probably going to use weapons we don't even know about, like they did in Venezuela. We have TR-3Bs, we have anti-gravity, we have sound weapons, we have microwave weapons, we have laser weapons, we have all kinds of weapons people don't know anything about that he can bring in and use to subdue the people. He maketh fire to come down out of the heavens in front of men to deceive them all. There was a movie, and I can't remember. Steven Seagal played in it, and it was about a train, and he posed as a cook, but he was on the train for, I guess he would kind of visit his niece or something like that, or along those lines. But anyway, there was a guy that commandeered a satellite and used the satellite to destroy things. And this is kind of interesting because when you see a movie like that, you're being told about weapons that really exist. And this is how their way of telling you they exist. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, not just one, many, all the remnant, those who remain after all this killing of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood and for the violence of the land of the city, Washington, D.C., New York, and all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high. Wow, where do we read that before? Nest on high. Oh, do we have space stations? Do we have bases on the moon? Do we have bases on Mars? Yes, we do. People, doesn't matter whether people believe it or not. We do, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. In other words, he tries to flee. God says, look, I don't care. You can dig yourselves into the mountains. You can go under the ocean. You can go to the moon. You can go to Mars. You can go anywhere you want. I am going to find you, and I am going to kill you all for what you have done. Nobody escapes the judgment of the Lord. All of us are going to stand before the Lord one way or another, and we are going to be judged. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, murdering them, and has sinned against thy soul. How many people did we cut off with mRNA vaccine, folks? Millions. Silent death, silent serial murder. We did it. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establishes a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity. Look up what happens to America, Babylon, and you will see a parallel. For the earth shall be filled, eventually, with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, and the waters cover as the waters cover the sea. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest look at their nakedness. Well, that goes down into the individual level where you maybe put date, rape, drug, and you have a date with some lady and you put this drug in her stuff and that kind of stuff. Well, that's what that's talking about. Alcohol, fire water, spirit water is what the Native Americans called it. I think they have more knowledge than anybody wants to give them credit for. They called it spirit water. Why? Because it opens a door to dark spirits. Why else would you, for example, give your neighbor to drink so you can have sex with your neighbor when he's drunk? Why else would you do it? Well, because you're evil. Anyway, now, for the violence of Lebanon shall cover thee. Ooh, that's probably Israel and the USA. We're supplying all the weapons, aren't we? And the spoil of beasts which made them afraid because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land of the city and of all that dwell therein. What are we doing to Lebanon? The violence of Lebanon. What are we doing in Lebanon? Folks, again, we're watching it happen before our very eyes. What prophetess the graven images that the maker thereof has graven it, the molten image and the teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusteth therein, to make dumb idols. Anyway, I wanted to go back here a little bit about entering into rest. I'll see if I can find it. But if not, it is in there. And I noticed it. Anyway, Habakkuk 3, a prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet. O Lord, I have heard thy speech. I was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known in wrath remember mercy in the midst of the years. Now, if you studied prophecy, you know that the tribulation period is divided up into 1260, 1290, and 1335. And anyway, the first half appears to be the rise of Antichrist, the works of evil. But in the midst of the years, make yourself known. In wrath, remember mercy. In other words, God's wrath is the time of judgment. There are two periods in the tribulation: time of trial, time of judgment. And the time of judgment begins in the midst of the years. In other words, at the center point of the tribulation, when Antichrist goes into that temple that they have rebuilt in Jerusalem, which they're already ready to do anytime. They've got the red heifer. We keep hearing about the red heifer ashes and all of this sort of thing. They're about ready to go. It's just a question of what triggers it. And so anyway, when Antichrist walks into that temple, it will be a literal walk-in of a temple in a holy place. It's going to happen, folks, because that's what's written. You can't spiritualize so much of this stuff away. They spiritualize away the mark of the beast. Oh, it's not literal. It's not ever going to happen. It's all mental, and it's all acceptance of this and that. No, it is literal. You will receive a literal tattoo, a literal subdermal mark of some type. What do you think they're working on? All of this is coming to the fore, and people are denying it. Anyway, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known in wrath, remember mercy. Wow. Anyway, I'm going to jump to verse 6. He stood and measured the earth, and beheld and drive asunder the nations. Whoa. This is obviously the latter days. At the everlasting mountains were scattered, the perpetual hills did bow, his ways are everlasting. Now, the mountains saw thee, they trembled. The overflowing of water, boy, that's a pole shift. Remember the movie 2012? Remember the monk standing on the Himalayas and he watched the tsunami wave coming towards him? That's going to happen, folks. When you have a pole shift, two things are not attached to the earth: water and air. When the crust begins to move and picks up speed, the air doesn't follow it. The air is separate, and it rolls back like a huge roll cloud. If you've ever seen a squall line of thunderstorms, you got this big, huge roll cloud that's advancing with it. Think of this as a gigantic roll cloud, bigger than we can even imagine, as the atmosphere rolls up, as the crustal ground gains speed, because in a real pole shift, it's probably over in 12 to 24 hours. And in Isaiah 24, it says the earth wobbles back and forth after the pole. In other words, it goes over more than 180 degrees. Then it wanders back, and then it wanders back again, back and forth until it finally settles down. We are in kind of a wobble even at this point in time. The Inuit Indians have repeatedly warned NASA that this is everything is shifting. Housewives are noticing it. Men are noticing it. If they grow plants or have a garden, they notice these things. Something's off, something's not right. Anyway, the mountains saw thee, they trembled. The overflowing of water passed by. The deep uttereth his voice, lifted up his hands on high. In other words, we got tsunami waves so big you can't even begin to imagine how many miles, maybe a mile high, maybe 2 miles high, maybe even 3 miles high, as the oceans come unglued from their beds and wash up over the nations. We can't imagine this stuff, folks, beyond our ability to imagine. The sun and moon, excuse me, stood still in their habitation, and the light of thine arrows they went, and the shining of thy glittering spear. Thou didst march through the land in indignation. Thou didst tresh the heathen in anger. In other words, you just walked all over them. Thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people, even for salvation with thine anointed. Oh, he's collecting his people out of it. They're not going to be here to see it. By the way, you don't want to be here to see any of this. Thou woundest the head out of the houses of the wicked by discovering the foundation unto the neck. Now I'm going to jump to verse 16. Habakkuk chapter 3. When I heard, my belly trembled. My lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered into my bones. I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. Remember when we did the study on the rest of the Lord? How you are to enter into the rest of God? How do you do that? You enter in at the straight gate. You walk the narrow way until you find Jesus Christ. After you have found him, after he has reasoned with you and shown you what divine love really is, and you accept it, in other words, you accept his covering, you have then entered into his rest. Why? Because you cannot go any further beyond ultimate truth. Look up the word ultimate. There's nothing beyond ultimate. It's the end of things. If it's the end of things, you obviously then have entered into rest. I don't work anymore. I'm in his rest. I do what I do because I love to do it. It's not a work. I don't work. I enjoy it. It's a wonderful thing to be a messenger for the Lord. It's not a work. I'm in rest. But this is a thing about the trouble comes. I might rest in the day of trouble. When he cometh up unto the people, he will invade them with his troops. Oh, there's a lot of argument and wonderment over what that means. Does he have aliens that are going to arrive? Some of them are already here. Are they going to be used as part of the judgment? I believe so. Absolutely. That's what they're here for. To judge the heathen, unbelieving, global people. I don't care what religion they're into. If you haven't entered the straight gate, you haven't walked the narrow way, which is a global command. It applies to everybody in the entire world. That is a command that we must do. And if you don't do it, of course, then you are going to go through all this stuff. Or you may be killed during a lot of it. doesn't really make much difference. You'd probably not do well anyway. Anyway, so when you read Habakkuk, you get a totally different view of what is going on in the world, that the people want you to believe what's happening as to compared with what Habakkuk says really is happening. We're watching mighty Babylon go forth and doing lawless evil. And we're doing it with our own dignity of what we think is right, what we know to be wrong, etc., etc., etc. Wow, folks, what could be more obvious? Are we in unbelief? Of course we are. We truly, because of our civilization, because of the scientific world, because of what we have been taught in schools about evolution, about science, and all of this stuff, we truly do not believe. We are in a state of unbelief, which is why when things like this happen, we really can't believe it started already. And yet, what did I just read to you? What are we actually doing? Are we in the Middle East? Are we scoffing at princes and kings? Are we over there just for Iran? Or are we going to take the whole Middle East and maybe that's the whole program? With Israel at the helm when this is all over. They're just using us. They're using our military. I don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you this. We're at in this vision. Remember when it said, it will not tarry, wait for it, and it's referring to this war, but when it occurs, it will occur at the appointed time. So when Trump moved on this, it wasn't appointed at that time, it was appointed to do this. And I remember Larry Taylor saying, I wonder if we haven't moved over to a different timeline or an acceleration is really what he meant. Does this accelerate things? Well, if you go to what Hegseth and the rest of them said, yes, they deliberately were doing this, they said, to hurry us into Armageddon. Well, does that mean it's fake? No, it doesn't mean it's fake. It simply means that the appointed time has arrived for all of this to begin. It's a domino effect. One thing leads to another, to another, to another. And we will find out as we go into this. But the point being, a lot of your rapture stuff is based upon a pre-trib or at-trib rapture. We don't truly know whether that's accurate or not. We could go into the tribulation, I believe, a little way. I do believe in Daniel's 70th week, which is 7 years. I do believe, then you got the 42 months, and the 42 months, you got the time of trial, the time of judgment, time of trial, and then you have the hour of judgment, where pretty much whatever has been rescued under the name of the Lord Jesus Christ has been rescued. And the only thing left will be the remnant of Israel. Basically, the human race is utterly demolished. Isaiah chapter 24, listen to what it says. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, maketh it waste. He turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. Wow. folks, think about this one. He maketh the earth empty. He makes it waste. We're talking about planet-wide destruction. He's turning the world upside down. The inhabitants of the world are scattered and destroyed. How do we know it's just everybody? And as it shall be, as with the people, global. So with the priest, as with the servant. So with his master, as with the maid. So with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller. As with the lender, so with the borrower. As with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. Everybody, no matter what your trade, no matter what you're doing, it's immaterial. But all of these exist up until this point. The land shall be utterly emptied, utterly spoiled. For the Lord has spoken this word. It is written. I keep going back to this. You have to stand upon what is written. You can only know what is written by intense study and the aid of the Holy Ghost, who said to you, you have no need of any man to teach you, for the Holy Ghost will guide you into all truth. He will convict you of sin, of righteousness, of judgment. He will lead you to Jesus Christ himself. That's his job. God the Father draws, the Holy Spirit convicts of sin, righteousness, and judgment, which takes you to Jesus Christ. Go ye to the lowest room, the room of death, the lowest pit. Sit. It's not where you go out and hang yourself or put a bullet in your head. This is internal. This is when you know you're dead and nothing of this world means anything to you at all. You have left it all behind. Your relatives are screaming at you, what's wrong with you? And all this other stuff. Anyway, the land shall be utterly empty, utterly spoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. The earth mourneth and fades away. The world languishes and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. Now, this is interesting. Haughty people. What does it say about salvation? I will destroy their haughtiness. I will destroy their arrogance. Well, I am not haughty. I am not arrogant. Of course you are. If you're a fallen creature, you are haughty and you are very much, how do I say, arrogant. It's probably the best word to use. You are haughty and arrogant, whether you realize it or not. Why? Because of that inner, hidden, wicked, evil heart of yours. We keep coming back to this dual heart, which is the lie of modern Christianity, because they have nothing to do with this inner, wicked, spiritual heart. Everything they do is out of court. Conscious mind only. They're of this world. All they think about is this world. There's a world beyond. You can only get to it through the straight gate, narrow way. There is no other way into it. That's it. There is no other way. People mock it. Your preachers, teachers, evangelists, prophetic scholars, look at their websites. Is there a straight gate, narrow way on any of their salvation, if they even have a salvation thing? No, it's not there. Why? Because they don't believe it. They don't believe it. They don't believe what God has written. They don't believe what Jesus Christ himself said, yet they call themselves Christians. Why do you think Peter warned you about these people? Do you think he was kidding? It really wasn't Peter that was warning you. It was Jesus Christ himself that was warning you. And Jesus said, I don't say anything except the Father tell me. So it is God the Father and Jesus Christ that are warning you about these fake preachers, teachers, evangelists, and modern prophetic scholars who are giving you maybe truth. I'm not telling you they're not giving you some truth about the ancient world or this or that. That's not the issue. The issue is when it comes to salvation, which is the only thing you really need to be worried about, they ignore it. It's like it doesn't exist, or they have an instant salvation. You know, say a sinner's prayer, be sincere. Do you realize that your heart is not sincere? Your conscious mind, there's no sincerity in it. Oh, yes, I am. I'm very sincere. Well, not really. The inner heart proves that that's wrong. Oh, well, Jesus said your inner heart is wicked beyond anything you can imagine. Well, then how can you be sincere? If you haven't solved this equation of marrying together that spiritual wicked heart with your outer conscious heart. Don't you see what this is all about? It's scary stuff, but you have to face it. Because this is the end of things. If you die during this thing of Isaiah 24, you're done anyway. You're lost forever. It's not going to be redone. Your life is not going to be redone. You can sit there, well, I would have, I could have, I should have. Would you let me go back and relive my life so that I can straighten it out? And the Lord just shakes his head and says, no, you had your chance. You had your chance and you blew it. You let the world come in and take over. I told you about it. I warned you not to let that happen. Parable of the sower. Do you think I was kidding you when I gave you the parable of the sower? I wasn't kidding you. I'm telling you what your obstacles are and that you have to overcome them and that anybody can if they want to because I have given them the power to do it. So you don't have any excuse. None. Zero. Nado. You understand? The earth is also defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore has the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. What's going on in the sun, folks? It's flaring. It's doing exactly what Major Ed Dames and his remote viewing team found. He called it the kill shot. The sun has been acting up very strangely now for the last couple, 3 years. Very odd, an anomalous sun. I have a Bible code and it says that God will destroy the inhabitants of the earth by the sun. The inhabitants of the earth are burned. Few men left. That means basically humanity is all but extinguished, only to begin again in the millennial reign. And at the end of that, what happens? Destruction again, because of the knowledge of good and evil. And then it's done. And then those that were of the Lord move on to things we cannot even begin to imagine. We have now, I believe, entered into the time when Habakkuk has come to pass. I don't know how you can interpret it when you study it any other way. It has come at an appointed time. Antichrist is rising slowly. I'm not saying it's Trump, might be, might not be, but he is gaining traction, one could say, by these things. Now, a lot of people say, well, he's just going to be exterminated. He's going to be murdered. Well, Antichrist actually is murdered, isn't he? He dies. He dies. I did a video a long time ago called Lucifer's Song. And in that video, documentary, I produced the evidence about John F. Kennedy. And what is interesting about the Kennedy situation is he hasn't returned. Not that he couldn't. And what would happen if he did? The whole world would be on their knees. And Kennedy was a womanizer. He was a homosexual. He was, we'd have to brand him as evil, even though the Lord in some ways would have to call him good. I mean, the people just loved John Kennedy. There were those who obviously who hated him, but for the most part, you probably still remember where you were when you got word that Kennedy had been executed, assassinated. I can remember exactly where I was when I heard the news. I was going into my lawyer's office. We were having a fight with the Burlington Airport Commission. I was trying to put up a fixed base operation, and they were doing everything in their power to stop me from doing it. And I had notified the FAA, and they were coming up to hold an investigation and a hearing. And so I wanted my lawyer there. Anyway, I was just walking into the office of his office, and his secretary looked up, and she knew me personally because I'd been in there a number of times. And she said, "Did you just hear Kennedy was assassinated?" It was a shock. It was really a shock to me. You do not, I don't care, you don't execute our president. Whether we like him, hate him, is immaterial. He is the president of the United States. You do not go around assassinating our leaders like that. You replace them if you're dissatisfied. Anyway, he hasn't returned. Let's put it that way. Will he? Good. Not going to say he doesn't. We don't know who Antichrist is. Anyway, Luke 21, 35 through 37. For as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Now, we've gone over this before, what a snare is: sudden destruction. Sudden destruction. For as a snare, it comes upon all them that dwell on the face of the entire planet. So whatever this is, this has to be worldwide, sudden or instantaneous. And the only thing that matches that is the taking of the bride of Christ. There is nothing else that comes close. Well, how about a solar flare? No, only the face of the world that is facing it would get that heat. It's not sudden. They're going to know it's coming. This is out of the blue, instantaneous, so fast you can't even divide time again. That's fast, folks. Twinkling of an eye. Sudden. Watch ye therefore. Pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. What's he telling you? You're going to escape. What does the word escape mean? It's kind of interesting. To flee out of, to escape from. The root of it means to run away. By analogy, to vanish, escape, flee. Well, how are you and I going to escape? How are we going to flee? Well, there's only other way that you can do that, and that would be to hide you away so that you vanish to the authorities, you vanish to the globalist authorities, you vanish to the Antichrist people, and you're held secretly somewhere, or you simply are blinded, or the people that are after you are blinded and they can't find you no matter what they try to do. Now that's possible. Luke 21:35 through 37. For as a snare, I just read that to you. Revelation 3:9-11, kind of interesting. I'm going to only focus on verse 10. Because, in other words, because you did something. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation that shall come upon all the world, here again, global, to try them that dwell upon the earth. In other words, global. Again, global. Because you kept the word of my patience, I will keep thee, because you kept the word. To watch, kept. This is what it means. G5083. To guard from loss or injury. Properly by keeping the eye upon. To prevent escaping, because you kept it. You kept his word. You didn't start and then fall away. You kept it. You guarded it. You grew with it. Line upon line. Precept upon precept. You build this knowledge. Study to show yourself approved, which means you study until God approves you, which is when you find Jesus Christ and accept his offer of salvation. Excuse me. That is the word kept. Now, patience. Very interesting word. Because in a society like ours, we just don't have any patience. You're driving down the road, you're hungry, you stop at McDonald's or somewhere, you instantly got a meal in 5 minutes. And if there's a long line, what do most of us do? Let's be honest. What do? Let's try another restaurant. Doesn't have this long line. I don't want to wait for half an hour. So you go to another restaurant because you don't want to wait. Lack of patience. This is our society. This is who we are. We're patterning ourselves. Patterning would be the word. We're making a pattern of, how do I say? People develop patterns. If you have a pattern of lying about things, you are training your brain to automatically, even if you don't want to, you're automatically going to keep lying. Same thing. You develop a pattern of impatience. Hard to break, actually, for all of us. We're all included in this. The word patience, kind of interesting. G5281. Cheerful. Hopeful endurance. Hopeful. Hope now abideth. faith, hope, and love. That's it. That's all there is. Your faith, your hopefulness, and divine love. That's it. Nothing else. Endurance, consistency, or constancy, I should say. Patient continuance. Remember when Jesus said, continue in my doctrine. Ask, seek, knock, strive, labor, continue. Patience. Another word for patience is continuing. Okay, let's look it up in the modern dictionary. Kind of interesting. The capacity, habit, or fact of being patient, such as the ability to accept obstacles or delays in a calm and self-possessed way. We get all kinds of weird things happening here all the time. This breaks, that breaks, something else happens. Over the years, I have learned to laugh at all of it. If it doesn't go out, if I'm supposed to send out CDs and it doesn't go out like we usually do it on Wednesday because something happens, it's going to go out on Thursday. If it's not going to go out on Thursday, it's going to go out on Friday. It's not going to go out on Friday, it'll go out on Saturday. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not even going to be concerned about it. Why? Because you learn patience. You can't get mad at all these things or you'll be in a fit all the time. Learn patience. It's something you learn, and you learn it by attitude, your attitude towards it. This is the key to anything, is your attitude towards it. If you have a wrong attitude about the straight gate and narrow way, you might as well forget it. You have to have the attitude, well, this is simple. I can do this. Anybody can do this. You'll do it. It'll work. Yes, you'll have your ups and downs, like we've used Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and all that kind of an adventure, ups and downs, dangerous in some areas, wonderful in other areas. That you just accept it. You go through it with patience. Okay, the Lord is really dealing with me today. I have a hard time. I'm having a bad day. Look at it from the opposite side of view. Look at it, oh, the Lord is pressing upon me. This is good. I welcome it. It means He hasn't forgotten me. It means He's still here. He's working on me. Okay, the ability to act with calm or restraint under provocation or strain. In other words, you just don't let things bother you anymore. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's kind of like, okay, you're driving out and you forget your checkbook or you forgot something. So now you got to drive, you got to turn around and you got to drive 5 miles back. Well, so what? Now, some people get so angry. They're angry all the time. Guess what that does to you? You can't let that kind of stuff bother you. Did it ever occur to you that maybe the Lord had you leave that checkbook behind because you were going to get into an accident if you had continued on? And He actually saved you from death. You just didn't know it. Or maybe you go outside and there's a flat tire and you got to change it. Same thing. It's all in your attitude towards this. You must develop patience if you're going to be successful in the straight gate, narrow way walk. You have to learn not to let any of this stuff bother you. You look beyond. Remember what it said about Jesus? He looked beyond the cross. He looked beyond to the other side of the cross. And that's what gave him the strength and the power to go through what he went through. Well, what he went through is what we go through is nothing compared to what he went through. And yet, it's kind of like, well, I got a headache today, or my legs hurt today. Yeah, well, there's people that don't even have legs, isn't there? They got blown off by stepping on an IED over in Iraq. You ever watch these soldiers that come back, make you cry? All for nothing. All for nothing. Because of these jerk rich people of the earth. I cannot wait for the day when the Lord takes them to eternal ruin and heaps upon them everything, all the fears, the anguish, the pain, the suffering they caused everybody else. I would hope he rounds all of that up and dumps it on them, and they can live with it forever. Because that's what they did. The ability to act under provocation or strain. In other words, if you get into an argument with somebody, don't argue with them. No point in arguing with them, particularly in a narcissistic viewpoint. You can't argue with a narcissist anyway. There's no point. Because you're never going to get the truth. You're never going to settle anything because their inability to settle anything. Their inability to be truthful. Their inability to, all they're going to do is gaslight you, and all they're going to do is they're going to run you through the mill, and they're going to be smiling all the time they're doing it. Why go through all of that when you can't settle anything? This is why I'm concerned about Trump. Why is he dealing with these people over in Iran? You can't deal with these people. There's no point. So what are we doing by negotiating with people who have no intentions to any agreement they make? What's the point? None. 0 point. I wouldn't negotiate with them at all. I would just give them an ultimatum. This is what we're going to do. We have the power to do it, and we have negotiated with you once or twice. You have violated everything. We're not going to negotiate with you anymore. It's all over. Done. No more reprieve. No more cessation. No more of anything. You now face obliteration. Your choice. You chose to do it. So that's what the problem is. Anyway, here's a real good explanation of patience. The ability to persevere over a long period of time, despite all the opposition, all of the difficulty, all of the adversity. That is a primary definition of the narrow way. That's the best one of all, and it comes from Webster's dictionary. Kind of interesting. Anyway, folks, that's about it. I don't know what else to say. It looks like we're going to find out more and more as we go along, but this is far from over. Even if they were to say we have made a total agreement and all of this cry of peace and safety, peace and security, peace and prosperity, it's not. It's fake peace. There is no peace without the Prince of Peace. The Prince of Peace has been assigned a place in the garbage dump of the global people, the humanity, basically. Even his own people refuse to do what he told them to do. You walk up to a modern Christian and say, what about this straight gate? What about this narrow way? He will look at you like you have lost your mind. But it's written, you say. This is what it says. Well, you're just one of those. You can't take any of this seriously. It says right here that we If we believe, we are saved, period. I believe, therefore I'm saved. Don't be adding to that. You're bringing another gospel. You're bringing another Christ. You're an anathema to us. Get away from us. We will not tolerate this kind of teaching. Having itching ears, they have turned away from the truth and been turned unto fables, lies, and they love to have it so. Don't be one of them. Anyway, folks, thank you.